what is going on? Sean Don coming back. Technical analysis. Here we have Rebekah Anderton, little sister to Brandon, also sent in by her father. So it's a family affair. Love to see a hammer throw. Let's take a look. Rebekah is young, going for her high school freshman record next year. So it's a 3K, about 77 feet. Wish I could have started throwing hammer when I was young. But that's beside the point. So let's take a look. I think the biggest thing overall that Rebekah needs is just more practice turning with the hammer. I know this is before I've even broken anything down, but I just got to say the best thing I think for Rebekah is to just do sets of turns, like 8, 10, 12 turns in a row, learning to quite literally turn with the hammer. I'll explain that more later on, but that's, I think, what would benefit her most. Learning to turn her body with the hammer, not ahead of it or behind it or anything like that, would go a long way. So let's take a look. She's only been throwing for a few months too, so this isn't really too bad. But that's one thing that I think if I could go back to the start of my hammer career, I would have done a little bit more of, is more turns. So just one wind. I mean, you could play around with 2. Once again, it's 3K, pretty light. I don't know how it feels throwing a 3K when you're, a 13-year-old girl. So, one thing is just try to reach out more to the right. As you can see, this right elbow is pretty close to the rib cage. Try to extend that right arm out as much as you can towards 270. You can see your head and shoulders are still facing off to the right a little bit, which is good. But so you can already see what I'm talking about when it comes to turning with the hammer right here in the entry. I think it looks like this first wind, the only wind, is there's not much tension being created, meaning if she comes through here on entry, there's really nothing being put into the hammer. It's just kind of the hammer's going and she's just turning ahead of it, as you can see. I also don't want to be too critical. Just, if I sound too critical, I apologize. Like I said, she's, going to be a freshman in high school next year. It's only been a few months throwing, but so I apologize if I sound too critical, but just trying to help out. So, yeah, you can see, this is what I mean. You see how her body turns ahead of the hammer? Like I said, she needs to learn to turn with it. So, you can see her feet trying to do something. Right foot turning, left foot turning. You can see this left shoulder actually stays out over the left heel pretty well, which is good. I would try to stay on this heel a little bit more. As you can see, you kind of reach down for that toe, and that just kind of rushes things. You can see things kind of collapse. This knee drops, a hip drops, and then you kind of come down with it. I think this all kind of goes back to the winds, though. I would definitely start using 2 winds. Keep the first one kind of how it is, nice and slow and easy. And the second one, you want to kind of use it to build some tension, to feel the hammer as you come through on entry. So that way, when you do come through on entry, your body doesn't rush ahead of the hammer because there is no tension with the hammer. If you don't feel tension, your body's going to move to create it. So think big circles with the winds. You want to create big circles. Because the longer the radius, the more tension you're going to feel, and the more tension you feel, the easier, well, I wouldn't say easier, but the easier it is to feel the hammer, I guess. Like I said, left shoulder set up well, but that you can just see the body turning ahead of the hammer. And then she sticks her hands out, and that left hip goes back a big amount. Comes around the left pretty good, though. Shoulders square to the hammer now, hips are square to the hammer. So you can see, like I said, that left foot coming down is a little funky. Like I said, so that left heel is good, and then you come down on that toe, but then also rise up a little bit on that left toe too. Just try to stay down. You can see how there's almost no weight on that left side. You want to keep that left foot grounded as much as possible. You catch, that left heel comes down. Hips are a little bit back, chest is a little bit forward. You can see hands are a little bit down. And then, so same thing, just because of however you start the throw is kind of just how the turns go. So when you start with that body turning ahead so much, you can see as soon as this left heel comes down on the second turn, or first turn, whatever you want to describe it, you see the body has the tendency to go again. You see this left leg turned almost 90 degrees ahead of where the hammer is. Once again, the left side's holding pretty well, but this right leg isn't really doing anything. It turns, but then it stops. When you want to see this right leg, in my opinion, you want to see this right leg, this right femur especially, turning with the hammer. As you can see, it's together there, and from here you want this right leg to turn with the hammer wire. So as you can see that separation now. So this is kind of once again what I mean by not turning with the hammer. This left leg is ahead and this right leg is behind. The right leg does kick in eventually, but it's a little bit too late. It's actually a pretty decent position though. But then you can see this right leg, since it is kind of lazy and comes off late, it comes wide around that right leg, sort of like a discus sweep. What you want to do is kind of drop this left knee towards the ground and step over that left calf with the right foot. You can see here, big discus sweep motion because your hips are back too. And then same thing, you kind of rise up on that left foot. You catch. You want your hips a little bit more forward towards the ball, especially that right hip forwards. Then you sink down with the hammer. Also not the most efficient. You want to stay one level. You want to be against the hammer. You want to counter it, but it doesn't need to be active. You just don't want to drop with the hammer. You don't want to rise with the hammer. You don't want to move with it. You kind of want to move against it, but also with it. Giant paradox. It's just how things work. So your positions through double support are pretty good. Like your shoulders are steady, your hips are steady for the most part. It's just your legs kind of do some funky things. Like I said, turning with the hammer will help. Learning to turn with the hammer. So same thing as in the previous turn. Right femur turning, and then the ball goes ahead. And it turns a little bit better than it did in the last turn. It's a little bit more consistent, better position here. But you can still see this kind of wide right leg discus sweep. Just some coordination issues, you know. She's young. It'll work itself out. The fact that she's even throwing hammer like this young is pretty good. Just got to make sure you ingrain the good habits before puberty finishes. Because once puberty finishes, the motor pattern is going to be pretty set and it's going to be kind of hard to change. At least that's what I've learned from my years in strengthening and conditioning. So same thing you can see when that left toe comes down. So heel, and the left toe comes down right there. She rises up a little bit, once again with the hammer, and then that causes her to over rotate a little bit. And this is her shallowest catch of the whole throw. Once again, chest a little bit down, hips could be a little bit more forwards, but I think the biggest thing here is that this right foot over rotates, and you can see it kind of is closer to the back of the ring than her left foot. You want to be a little bit more, that right foot to be a little bit closer to the front of the ring. So she over rotates. You can see the chest and hips drop down, and then she gets tight to keep tension on the hammer because that left heel doesn't come down. Maybe it comes down early, but because this chest drops and hips drop, she's pulling back on the hammer to keep some tension. And that's why this left foot comes off pretty quickly. So lots of things in there to work on, but honestly, I wouldn't worry too much about any of it. Just keep throwing. Like I said, try to get those legs turning with the hammer a little bit more. Get that coordination of the feet and knees and hips and all that stuff. Like I said, turning with the hammer. If you could do that, that's a big win this early in the game. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm here to help, and have have fun. Like I said, family affair is pretty cool. And you guys are all invested in the hammer together. So, thanks for watching, guys. If you'd like a technical analysis of your own, go to SeanDonnelly.biz. Go to the services page and sign up now. $15. It's like a Chipotle burrito or two, depending on how much you get. I don't know. That's how I look at it. Worth the investment in yourself and your performance. So, that's it. Thanks for watching. Until next time.